Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
And today I have the pleasure of introducing David Richards. David is the founder and CEO of Changemaker Education, a national network of affiliate love-based micro schools and an incubator for founders who want to usher in a new paradigm for the future of education. He is also the host of Changemaker EDU podcast. Previously, he was founder, teacher, and leader with Summit Public Schools when he launched several innovative schools before becoming the founder and CEO of Growth Public Schools. In addition, he serves as leadership and life coach. David has worked in education reform for over 25 years as a teacher, principal, executive, and board member. He lives in Sacramento, California with his wife and his two children and holds a BA from UC Berkeley and a master's from Stanford Education. Welcome, David. It is a pleasure to have you here today. I am so interested in hearing more about micro schools.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you again. Yeah. So whenever we're looking for guests, it's always like, okay, what can we bring to our audience that is something a little bit different than what we've talked about before, or a missing link in something that we've talked about. And since we support homeschool and people who really look at alternative schools, I wanted to find out more about this thing called a micro school as well. I've done some research, but coming from somebody who's actually producing them and making them grow and helping people start them, this is a great day for us to have you on the show. So
all right.
So much.
Good.
Can you start with your passion? What started you down this path of looking at micro schools and alternative education? And what was that, pivotal point in either your life or your children's life that really made it happen?
I think for me, it's like deeply personal because I have a family of my father, my brother, and my nephew are all severely dyslexic. And so I was good at school, but I always felt like it was a complete waste of time and like really boring. And especially the traditional public schools. And then my brother was in the special classes in the 80s, right? And so he was made fun of, and they only had one class, whether you were any kind of diagnosis. And so I would get in a lot of, arguments and fights with the kids because they'd call him a lot of mean names. And then my father is British, and so he actually was kicked out of school at the age of 11. They actually have a program. They had a program after World War II called 11 Plus. So if you were not a good student, you had three choices: university, vocational school, or go work in a factory. So they decided that he should go work in a factory when he was 11 years old. So he left school and totally turned his life around and was a very successful entrepreneur. So that was always my, and he always kind of felt like, why are you going to Berkeley and Stanford? You should go do business. Like this intellectual stuff's a waste of time, So we always had that conversation. But yeah, so for me, it's always been kind of this balance between business and education. I totally love teaching. Nobody in my family went to college, so I was the first one to go to college, and I got a banking job, and everybody was really excited for me because I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't very excited. So I really wanted to be a teacher. So I went and worked in Oakland Unified School District in California with kids that kind of grew up like me and the kids that I grew up with, and I loved serving them and working with them. And then I quickly learned that it was a completely dysfunctional system and that I was not going to create a lot of change. And, I went to a nice suburban public school system. Now I'm working in a dysfunctional urban school system, and they're kind of the same, but they're not, right? But the root problems are the same. So I got out of there really quickly and found Summit Public Schools, which is a charter organization. And we were all about self-directed learning, agency for kids, project-based learning, empowering teachers, and kind of treating everyone as a leader. And so that led me to my really fun career of, becoming a principal and assistant superintendent. And then I really wanted to open my own school for my own kids. So I started a school out here in Sacramento. That was another alternative school about self-directed learning, social emotional learning, and our tagline is we do school differently. So that led me through all of that to find micro schools. And that's when I got really excited about the things I've been wanting to solve for 25 years can be solved in a micro school because it's small. The parents are really involved. The teachers have a lot of autonomy and agency, and you can solve problems because of the nature and the size and the value system of a micro school. So that's what led me a few years ago to launch this organization and to empower educators that are running away from the public school system or parents, like yourselves that are working, that want to do some version of alternative schooling or homeschooling, and help them create this education revolution, which is the future of education.
Alrighty,
Thank you,
so
thank you, thank you. And I wish I would have maybe found you a couple of years ago before I started my entrepreneur journey, but I am happy doing what I'm doing because I love speaking and working with parents.
yeah, so
Awesome.
somebody
Awesome.
who is very much into education and really relates to so much of what you talked about, but for the
Yeah.
layperson and the husband who's out throwing work around, what is a micro school?
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
How is it different than homeschooling or a pod?
Public school or a charter?
You know what? That might, all my questions might be answered in your initial explanation. So simple terms for the non-educator out
Yeah.
there who,
Well, what's
wants to be
interesting is,
involved, but us.
yeah, no, I love it. What's interesting is a lot of educators don't know what a microschool is, so that's totally fine. It's very simple. There's a national microschooling center, and they define it as the size. So 5 to 150 kids. So you think about homeschool family that has 3 kids, and maybe they take on 3 more kids down the street. That's a microschool in your home, right? Considered according to the microschool center. Then there's sort of the larger end of the spectrum is like a K-12 or maybe preschool through 12 microschool that has 150 kids. That's another microschool. But what they share in common is like multi-age, very small, typically like 10 to 15 kids per class, sometimes even smaller. And they're kind of a redux of the one-room schoolhouse. So my mother went to school in rural Texas, my mother-in-law rural Nebraska, and they're like, yo, buddy, this is not that new or exciting. Like we did that
I'm
years
kind of
ago.
cracking up here. I'm cracking up. Okay. We just recently moved back to the town where I grew up in, and I ran from here like with a passion. I couldn't wait
Yeah.
to get out. There was
Yeah.
11 people in my graduating class. There was
There you go.
55 people in my high school. This is the public school. It's a mile and a half down
Yeah.
the road from where we are at right now.
So it was an original micro
And
school.
about 10 years ago, it actually became a charter school. And so they actually bus from like 45 miles away to get to the school.
Now.
But to me, it's just Prospect School, because at K through 12
Yeah.
is less than 100 kids. It's like, so
Yeah.
yeah. So listening to
But
you
it's
define what a
different.
micro school is like, ooh,
But
okay.
different than a public school in which ways?
Okay, so here's what's interesting. There are public microschools and there are private microschools, and then there's microschools that are private that are fully funded by vouchers or education savings accounts. So I always tell people, and then there's charter microschools. I always tell people the way it's governed or structured does not define it as a microschool. So, however, the microschool center does put out an annual report, and currently it's 80% of microschools are private tuition and or full tuition parents are paying, or there's a supplement from the state, like in Florida it's like 10,000 per student. And so some micro schools are private micro schools where the parents are paying zero because the tuition is 10,000 and the Florida government is giving them 10,000 per student. So and then there's kind of a movement to create more public district micro schools. That's like 20% right now. And then there's a movement to kind of do more like public micro charter schools because they want to, be able to give it to kids without having to make them pay. But what makes it unique is the small size, and the micro school center actually has a set of core principles, which I can't remember all 10 of them, but I remember that they're like, it's supposed to be small. The kids are supposed to have agency. It should be about experiential learning. It should be about kids being well known, and all the things that, you look at a great school and that's typically what's happening. So we don't want the public sector to screw this up. So we're trying really hard to put like structures around it and say like, okay, just putting 20 kids in a room does not make it a micro school. You got to have the right teacher, you got to have the right principals, you got to have the right mindsets. Parents have to be involved. You cannot push them out like they do in the traditional public schools. They have to be involved, and they know their kids better than anyone else. So don't, talk down to them, but actually give them access and work with them and work together. So that's where it's going to be interesting, but it's kind of like, everything that's old is new, that kind of thing. So here we are 100 years later doing the same thing.
I love that. You probably just saw me cheer a little bit there, because whenever you said parents know their kids better than anybody, is like, and that's what I help my parents understand when we're talking about homeschooling. Is like, yes, you may not have the complete academic language or credentials you need, but your child, and you can help them learn in so many different ways that other people can't, because you know their rhythms, their cycles, their ups and downs, their sleep, their non-sleep, all of that stuff.
And you might not know math, but you could bring in somebody who does and plug
Absolutely.
that in. And you might not know this specific thing that they're really interested in, but if they're really interested in it, then they'll start bringing it in
Exactly.
and figuring it out. So it's like the older they get, the sooner they start, the older they get, the less involved you actually have to be, which
I
is
believe it.
absolutely mind-blowing.
Yep.
Then they start making you learn stuff. It's like, hey, you got to come see this. And then it's
Yes.
like, stop teaching me stuff.
Yes.
I'm the dad.
You got to unleash them, right? Once you unleash them and get them out of these traditional structures and these boxes, they start to show you their inherent genius. It just comes out.
Yeah, and if you can get out of the way and not be thrilled for your kids, because it's like they're gonna get what you didn't have, and
Yes.
they're gonna be what you wanted to be. It's like, whew, yeah, that's really.
So in a micro school, are the parents the teachers part-time, or are there just actually salaried kind of teachers that are doing everything and the parents are just super involved? How does that kind of
It's a mix. There are homeschool co-ops that kind of probably have been working the same way for years, where it's like the parents come in and they do a day or two. So those are considered micro schools. But then there's the micro school where the parents are like, I don't have time to homeschool. Like both of us are working full time, but we like the idea of a micro school because it kind of seems like a homeschool, like smaller and intimate, and the parents get a lot of say in what's going on. And so that's run by educators. And then every state has different rules, whether they have to be credentialed, certified. A lot of micro schools will run as a homeschool learning center so that they can circumvent some of the requirements from the state. So essentially, a homeschool family would say, "We're a homeschool family. We're registering with the state. We're taking on the compulsory attendance, just like any homeschool family. However, we're going to pay you as a vendor said micro school to actually educate our children." And so you're essentially creating like an 8 to 3 micro school that's not listed as a school anywhere. It's called a micro school learning center. And that allows them to really have a lot more freedom to do what the parents and the educators think are best for the kids.
Okay, so one thing that I would kind of like to say that I see is I was thinking, could we do that here at the school that we have? And
Mhm.
I'm thinking that won't actually work here. Why? Because in most places where they have micro schools, they're set up and people want to join them. And so
Mhm.
you have parents motivated in a way to join them, and maybe kids wanting to join them. But converting a small public school, you will probably have parents who don't want to get involved and who are
Mhm.
just meeting things and sending their kids to school, and that can take away from the micro learning environment. So it would be more of an effort, a community effort. But whereas in a larger community where they're created intentionally and people want to join, I could see that having a greater impact on the students. And so yeah, I just kind of went there in my head because it's like, oh, this sounds great, we can do this here. And then I
Right.
started thinking, it's like, some of that wouldn't work. But
Well, so you actually, I mean, you probably could, and this is where I think it's going to be interesting the next few, 3 to 5 years is, like I said, is the size of the micro school what makes it magical, or is it like the teachers and the parents? And it's probably a little bit of both. Like taking away the big factory model nature of a school solves a lot of problems right now. So I think you said there's like 40 kids or whatever. So, or 20, it's a small number of kids. So if you could find like a really great educator, and maybe not all the parents are helping out, but you have a couple that want to come in, maybe you have like a retired teacher or grandma's coming in and the parents aren't helping, but you have like a few really amazing adults that are making that place special. Then you have that small size plus the amazing adults, and the formula is the same. It might just not be the parents choosing it and that kind of thing. But I think this is what we have to kind of test and try out over the next few years, because I'm already getting a lot of phone calls from superintendent saying like, hey, could you come, because we help people launch micro schools. So they're kind of like, could you come and launch a micro school for, fill in the blank special population? Like maybe it's like a group of autistic kids or something. And it's like, we don't really know how to do this. If you found a great educator, maybe he's already in our district and is about to leave. Would you be willing to do that? And I'm kind of like, well, I have to really think that through because there's a lot of conditions that I would have to demand to make sure that we don't ruin our brand and what we're really trying to do here. But typically we work with educators, families, like you said, that want to really jump in and recruit their friends and family and other people. And they typically have like a very specific theme, right? Like maybe it's a, we have one in Philadelphia that's right by the convention center and it's an arts-based, performing arts-based school. Chicago has a STEAM school, and we have one in Denver that's a nature-based school. So there's like the passion of the educators, and typically they have their own kids, so they're parents and educators, and they're bringing that to the community. And then there's kind of a self-selection process that happens.
And
Oh,
that
we've been talking about stuff
we
like
have
setting stuff up like that for years. Like, so
Yeah.
if a kid is interested in dance, they might not necessarily be good at dance, but that's their passion. They go to
Yep.
that school, they could work on the costuming, they could work
Yep.
on the musical scores, they could work on the choreography. They might not be the athletic dancer, but if that's what they're interested in, there's so many avenues to
They're
educate
learning.
them around that. If they're interested in sports, you could have sports designed around
Yep.
schools designed around a specific sports, so that they're getting the math with their sports that has to do with the sports curriculum. The costume designers, the cheerleaders, or the uniform designers. And
Yep.
there's so much that, because it's not just guys that are interested in sports.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, we talked about this for years and about how we
see, you were just
and
ahead of
now-
your time.
yeah.
Here we are.
But
He's ahead
again,
of his time.
I'm an idea guy. Putting that stuff into
Yeah.
motion has
That's why we need
always
David.
been.
That's why you hire me. And so we attract a lot of visionaries that have amazing, like we have people that are so I work with my partner who's a COO, and she has to come in and be like, you guys just take a deep breath, because all people call me and say like, I want to do one that's like part-time in Nicaragua and part-time in Washington DC, and I have one where I want it to be in Tahiti and New Zealand and Hawaii. I had both of these conversations yesterday. And we're like, okay, maybe we could do that in year 3. But yeah, so we attract these really visionary people because they really believe that education needs to shift. And then we put together this whole program where we help you implement your vision with like structures and processes, and we put it all into place for you. And I'm very visionary, and I'm also an ideas guy, but I'm also really good at implementation. So and then my partner is amazing at implementation and kind of like taking a vision and implementing it. So we help you take your big vision and make it really bite-sized for your micro school. And we actually have a basketball coach who's a special ed teacher in Rochester, Minnesota, and he's doing exactly what you talked about. He already has a basketball gym that he does for his youth basketball leagues on, his side business. So now he's going to have a hybrid micro school where kids can come in and learn about exercise and diet, and then have like project-based learning for all the things. And most of them are athletes, so they can't go to school every day because they're doing travel ball and stuff like that. So I told him, I said, you're going to have that place enrolled in like a week. Like it's not going to be a problem there, because he only has spots for 28, right? Because it's a small space. And I'm like, you're not going to have trouble enrolling that at all.
Wow. It's funny because we were actually on a podcast with another mom just recently, and her son is on the spectrum. And so, he's interested in only specific things. And his big thing is tractors. And she's like, if I just give him numbers, he won't do his math. But if those numbers are related to a tractor, or in the shape of a tractor, or in the wheels of a tractor, he's all over it.
Yes.
So
I had a student like that around the train schedule
where they're working with farming and tractors.
Yes.
And he's gonna
be all
what
over
is he gonna do?
We have a school in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that's on a maple syrup farm, 50 acres. So the gentleman owns a farm. He's a trained PBL educator, and he wants to do it's called First Frost. So it's going to start in February, and the kids are going to be working the farm and doing projects. And it's I love it. I love it all. It's so exciting.
That is amazing. And you just mentioned like Hawaii and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, unfortunately, I've heard that their school system is not great over there.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I would love to have, snorkeling school.
Yes, can you
diving
imagine?
school and nature school in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I could go live and teach on the beach for a while.
Right? That would be okay.
Yeah, but we also live up here in the woods underneath Crater Lake, and the amount of outdoors and bringing people back into nature that we could do.
Nature school here would be amazing.
Just tremendous.
Amazing.
And especially because you could like have rotating people come in and out for like months at a time.
So currently I've done several podcasts in the last 3 months, and it's 100% of the time the people on the other end are asking me how they can start a micro school. So, or at least getting excited about it because it's so exciting.
Well, we kind of were already in the process. We're creating a space here, a health wellness retreat. Because again, I have brain damage, so we're going to be getting like hyperbaric chambers, float tanks, hot cold therapy, and we're about 45 minutes from the most major town. So a nice,
Perfect.
relaxing drive up into the mountains to be able to
Oh, I love it.
fire and then
And then
to
hike the
relax.
trails
And
and
so
Uh,
we're kind of
yeah.
in the process of that, and that's my part of it. But her part of it is also the community center and the reaching out
yes.
to the homeschool community and working with them and creating a community garden. So we've got a lot of stuff kind of
Oh, I love it.
in motion, and it's kind of so funny how it's all just kind
But
of flowing right
let's get
now.
back to our
Oh
audience.
yeah.
What
Oh,
was our audience
I
need out of this
forgot. We're in a
conversation?
podcast, aren't
We
we?
are. So if we have a parent who's thinking, I
Yeah.
know I need something different for my child, I know that this is not working. What are some of the
Yeah.
key things that you've seen that is a benefit, what the family can do, or what are the key indicators that the child, really needs to do this micro school or something different?
Yeah, so I'm not like super familiar with homeschool and how, like I wouldn't say, but I can speak to the micro school side and then maybe you guys can fill in on the other side. But what I will say is if you are a homeschool family that's like, I'm ready for my child to be in like school most of the day or maybe 3 or 4 days a week and like we're ready to transition, but we don't want to go into a traditional private or public school, I would say micro school's a place you should consider because like I said, it kind of marries the both worlds, right? Because it's small and more personalized and so it's kind of like homeschool. I have friends that have like 7 kids or 10 kids and I talk to them and I'm like, they all homeschool and I'm like, you sound like a teacher. But of course, because they have all these different kids and I'm like, well, this kid likes this and that kid's like, I'm like, well, you're kind of doing a micro school with your 10 kids. Anyway, so I would say, the thing that is most important is what, like I said, what is it the child actually needs and what's best for them? Are they like really introverted and maybe they're fine with like not being with a bunch of kids or even, like my daughter's very introverted. She would be fine with like a hybrid couple days a week, maybe half the day in a school and half the day at home. My son's super extroverted. He would never want to be homeschooled by himself, right? He'd want like at least 10 kids to like throw a football and tackle and, jump on and all that. So you kind of, as homeschool parents are really good at, I imagine, just, really know what your kid needs. And then what I would say is if there's not a micro school in your community, then you should think about opening one. And you can open one, either you can do it yourself and like figure it all out, or you could partner up with an educator that is very progressive and alternative and has always wanted to do something like this. And these are the power teams that I see doing the best. It's like I'm a mom or I'm a dad that totally understands what my kids and I know kids really well, but I'm not sure about all this like curriculum stuff. And then you find an educator that's like, I don't really know all the stuff about parents and this and that, and maybe the business side, but I know how to, teach kids all these different subjects. And so they partner up, and the educator's so happy because they get to do what they want to be doing, and the parents so happy because their kids are happy and their friends' kids are happy, and so it works out for everyone.
And that's kind of what was happening a little bit kind of like back in COVID and stuff when things were class
Right.
pods and stuff were showing
Yeah.
up, right? Individual families would hire a teacher who wasn't in the public school system anymore. It's like,
Yep.
come teach my kids kind of thing. I mean, it was not exactly what you're doing with the micro schools, but that kind of like the beginning probably.
That's what propelled the micro schools. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just blew up after the like pandemic pods.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because parents were like looking at what was actually being taught, and it's like part of it was like, I don't want that, and part of it was like, that's all they're doing. I can do better.
Exactly.
So there was all sorts
Yeah.
of it, and so lots of reasons to be moving out of the education system.
Yep. It was a big
Um,
wake up call. Yep.
lots of reasons to be moving out of the education system. And
And
so
then people like me, teacher who's like near the end of her career, I still
Yeah.
wanted to teach, but I was
Right.
just
Right.
so fed up with everything that was going on inside the
Yeah.
school, and not being able to really reach my kids the way I want to. I mean,
Yeah.
so
I tried to talk her into micro schooling, but
I just couldn't.
she was done by
I
the
was
time she
done.
was.
Oh, yeah. You needed a break. You needed a breather. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that I was thinking about was that, oh man, you blew me off my thought there. Oh, I don't. Yeah, we'll have to go somewhere else.
They'll come back.
Isn't that fun when that happens?
It's not fun.
They'll come
So
back.
what else? So let's see. Oh, so for special needs, let's look at that a
Yeah.
little bit closer, right? I mean, is our micro schools best suited for quote unquote our normal average learners? Are they better for our neurodiverse, our special needs children? What kind of happens with micro schools? Because I know it's very much dependent on the parent and the teacher, but
Yeah.
are there certain kids that maybe do better in this situation?
I think it really depends on the micro school, but I will say that neurodiverse kids are, I think they're like very, I think it's one of the largest percentage of students that are in micro schools because you think, I mean, it makes sense, right? You're smiling. Like, I mean, it's like, well, there, yeah. I did some consulting with a Montessori school and I had to quit because I couldn't even stomach what was happening with the kids that had, different learning differences. So, yeah, so I think the micro schools are really working well with those kids because they're understanding how to meet them where they're at, work in tandem with the parent. Parents are spending hours and hours and hours in IEP meetings with advocates and thousands of dollars. And it's like, oh, wait, I can pay you for a micro school and we'll work together and you'll see my kid and you'll take care of them and you'll do what they need best. Oh, and you want me to pay a little bit for like a speech therapist? Sure. Like, so it works out.
Oh,
So
but
I
the
think
school
that's,
system says this and this and this, and they're talking about lawyers and they're talking about doctors and are you sure micro school? Because man, the education system is like fighting tooth and nail and is scaring me. What should I do?
Yeah.
yeah. And so they end up doing really well in a micro school because it's small and personalized. And yeah. And so that's a big population. I think any community, there's a big population of the black population, like black mothers that are like, we're not doing it anymore. We're not putting our kids in traditional public school. It's not working. So that's a population that's been rising. And then I think just like anybody who's not fitting into the public school, which I think the high school stats, 75% of kids don't like it in a public high school. So we're talking about a lot of kids that aren't fitting into the traditional school. So anyone who's just kind of like, I'm not the football or the cheerleader, quarterback or the cheerleader, like this is not working for me. I don't want to go to school every day and, listen to somebody talk in a classroom with 40 kids all day. And that's a lot of kids. So I think it works for a lot of them. And then it depends on the theme and the kind of specific nature of the micro school, whether it works for that kid.
Okay, so then that just totally popped into my brain. So are the micro schools kind of like age specific, or are they really the K-12 one-room schoolhouse kind of thing?
It's a mix. So it's interesting with our founders, a lot of them come in because their educators like, I really want to start with like kindergarten, first grade.
Mhm.
And then by like month three, they've talked to families. They've started like putting out their vision of self-directed learning and like really getting meeting kids where they're at. And they're like, oh, I think we'll do K-8. Like, I think we'll do, and then they stop using grades. They're like, I think I'll do 5 through like 14-year-olds. So it typically is like a grade, almost like Montessori, like an age band where people will be like, I want to do like 5 to 8-year-olds or 5 to 12. Sometimes doing like 5 to 17-year-olds off the bat is really hard. So they'll kind of grow into it. Maybe they'll start like 5 to 10-year-olds and then do 10 to 14 and then 14 to 18. So, but typically micro schools will serve like the whole range. Like I have a friend in South Dakota who started one. She was my first client 5 years ago, and hers is currently infants to 16-year-olds in rural South Dakota.
Infant to 16-year-olds.
You
Wow.
could do that. I know you could, but
My
but you think of teaching reading to second and third graders and translating that to high school, and
yeah,
that. But
that's what
you
scares
could
me.
guide them.
Oh,
You
yeah.
could guide them so easily because you're not going to be teaching high schoolers reading.
Right.
Well, my
Hopefully,
Exactly.
friend was a high school,
well,
middle school teacher, and
you might at first, but
yeah.
hopefully not for very long.
I was gonna say my friend was a high school, middle school teacher, and she ended up kind of like finding a great Waldorf teacher who had done elementary, and they partnered up.
Uh-huh.
And then as they grew, she's like, oh, I finally know what I'm supposed to do with them. Now they're in like sixth grade. But in that first kind of few years, she was just kind of working alongside this gentleman who'd been a Waldorf teacher and worked with that age group. And they did it together and it worked really well.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah. And see, that's one of the myths that we constantly are breaking because people are like, oh, well, yeah, you can homeschool until seventh or eighth grade. But then when they get high school, it totally changes. You can't do high school on your own. Da,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. What do you say to those people?
I mean, 75% of kids don't like high school.
Mhm.
So what are we doing? My daughter and my son, my daughter's in seventh grade, my son's in ninth grade, and they're already telling me like, oh, my friend wants to leave. Like he's been here for a month, 2 months. What is it? October 28th, 2 months.
Yeah.
Like I want to leave. My friend wants to leave. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, of course they do. Like, what are we doing in high school? It's like, okay, well, we have the extracurriculars and the AP classes, but once you take maybe those two things out, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Other than the social
45
ones.
minutes wasting time, 10 minutes of trauma, 45 minutes of wasting
Yeah.
time, 10 minutes
Bullying,
of trauma,
trauma,
45
listening to
minutes of
teachers
wasting
drone
time,
on. I
10
went to
minutes of
the
trauma, and then you go home.
and then I went to the it's like an open enrollment school where my son goes. So I thought they would be putting on a dog and pony show when the parents came to visit in the spring. Oh, they weren't. So I walked into classrooms and it was like 40 kids, seven of them sleeping, and the teachers just talking. I'm like, aren't you embarrassed that all these kids are sleeping and on their phone and they didn't even care? I'm like, this is so sad. Like, what are we
You're
doing?
kidding me. Oh, I haven't
Yeah.
heard that was
40
that bad
kids,
yet.
40 kids. Um, as a former principal, I kind of look for engagement and what's going on. There were probably about five that were engaged, and it was like 10 a.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow,
Ooh,
wow,
yeah.
wow.
I drove public bus for a while. It's like some people you can't reach. Some people, and then so you do have to focus on the ones who actually want to be there. And again, this is kind of why the micro school concept is so important and is so valuable. And again, future leaning because you're going to find places where you want to be instead of where you have to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, 75% of the kids don't want to be there. Why would they even try? They're not being heard, they're not being listened to, they're not being seen, they're not being valued as human beings. They're shuffled through this process where even their parents seem to not care most of the time. And if they do, they can't reach them anyway. That system is so broken and it hurts my heart so much.
I know.
And because she fought for it for 27
Oh, I
years.
know you did. I know I've met so many teachers like you that, well, and interestingly enough, the system isn't broken. It's actually designed to it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to batch, factory model, separate, sort them out, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we need a new system. And so I always talk about we need a new operating system because we have amazing teachers like Christina that are doing amazing things in spite of the system. Why don't we create a system where they don't have to work against it, but they can work with it, like a micro school where they can just like let their genius just be amazing with kids and change kids' lives, and the parents are happy and the kids are happy, and you have on a whole new system.
Yes, exactly. Wow. So is this something that you have to start at like typically the beginning of the school year? So like you said, you have some friends like October, their kids are hating it already. Can you pull them out right now and get them into a micro school or start a micro school? Homeschooling, of course, you can pull them out anytime and you can put them back anytime.
Yeah.
It's very,
Yeah.
very fluid and flexible according to the family. How does micro
Yeah.
schools kind of work?
Similarly, interestingly enough, we actually had a hypothesis, with our first cohort of microschool founders that we would have to have all the families come in August or September, and what we learned very quickly is that there's a huge influx of microschool families that come in January. And so now we're going to do a cohort that launches in August and a cohort launches in January. Like, why are we waiting a whole year to launch a cohort? Like, there's families that are waiting and just kind of like, what, don't make me wait a whole another year. I'm ready to go right now. So yeah, so I think it's
They're
very
trying to
fluid.
wait till the end of the semester so their kids can get their grades
Mm-hmm.
and maybe turn it around.
No.
Understood. Yeah.
And so yeah, January is huge.
Yeah.
One of the things that it's like that homeschool is like really great at, and it's like you can go to school in the summer and then take winters off if you're really into winter sports. It's like you don't have to be the August, September to
Yeah.
July. You could have a month here, 3 weeks there, and you pick it up and you move when you need it and when your children are ready for it, instead of
Exactly.
a forced prescribed this book, this page, this test, this day, this age. Oh, it's your birthday, it's this test, whatever. So
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
that
Agreed.
that changes and it
Is the micro schools kind of flexible like that, or but
Yeah.
because there's a teacher that's kind of directing it?
Very flexible. Like I said, our founder in Indiana is starting in February. He wants to start with the first frost. So he's really following the land, not the district calendar.
So you were an awesome teacher.
Okay.
In this situation, if you had 20 to 30 kids across ages that weren't there all at the same time.
Micro school.
Okay. That weren't all there at the same time.
Okay, there we go.
And some of them, how would you handle that? What would tell them no homework while they're gone? Be ready to pick it up when you get back. How would you as a good teacher
go learn wherever you're going? So like
learning happens all the time.
Family.
Yep.
So how would you answer that question?
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd answer it.
Well, and the other interesting piece is I had somebody call me a couple of weeks ago who said we're traveling. This is becoming very popular, especially with the millennials. We're traveling with our 7 and 5-year-old across the world.
Yeah.
And so would you help me open a micro school in Spain where I could be here for 6 months and we could sort of have like a micro school for all the traveling millennial parents that have kids and they come here and then we all go to Italy for 6 months and it's just like a traveling micro. I said absolutely we can do that. Wait till next year because we're just getting started, but yes, we can definitely do that. So that's on our radar too, those kind of creative ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, we help parents kind of plan stuff like that. Like, oh, you're going to this city. It's like, what kind of
Yeah.
architecture are you going to see there? What kind of parks are going to be there? What
Yes.
kind of zoos are going to be there? You
How
know,
can you
what
integrate that
what
into the
what
learning?
history happened in this town? So instead of like reading it in a book, you can say, hey, look, this happened here.
Right here.
So history comes alive. So there are
So
traveling curriculums
Oh,
that
I'm sure.
put together. It's like, okay, kids, we're going to go to this town. What's this? What's this? What's this? What are we going to go look at? What are we going to do while dad's doing this, while mom's doing that?
Yeah.
We're doing. So yeah, there's, it's amazing what you can do with motivated, interested parents.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like thinking, okay, when I get on the podcast, if I get to talk about this is kind of what I really want to make sure I get out there or help the families understand?
I don't think so. I think the most important thing is really finding I think we talked about this, like what's the best fit for your kid. I mean, like in Indiana, for example, they have a rule that if your child's homeschooling or going to micro school, they can play on the high school sports team. So I think we have to kind of like undo a lot of these traditional kind of we've always done it this way kind of things. It's like, why don't we let them play sports? Why does it matter? Like if they're in the neighborhood and they would go to that school, why can't they play on the sports team? It's like, oh, because he's too good, or oh, because he's not having to suffer through public school all day, so he can't play on the basketball team. It's like, no. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things like that. And I think the other piece that we didn't touch on as much as like the policy kind of implications of what's happening with vouchers and education savings accounts. So you're starting to see the lawmakers say like, wow, the pandemic happened, parents aren't happy, educators are fleeing the profession. So we need to start creating policies that actually mirror that problem. And so something like 24 states in the last year or two have passed some sort of legislation like tax credit, voucher, savings account, where the money is literally following the kid wherever he or she's going. So I think that's an interesting development. I think it's only going to continue to improve, or more and more money will be coming directly to the kids because the school district is not entitled to that money. So I think that's going to be a real interesting place where families are going to be really empowered. Like they're going to have, like in Arizona, you get a debit card with anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000 on it, depending on where your kid goes to school and whether they have a special education designation. So if you have a kid with, multiple special education services or whatever, you can get $20,000 and take that right to a micro school and say, here's 20 grand. Let's figure out how we're going to educate this kid together. So yeah, I think we covered all of the
Really
really
looking
important
forward to
things.
Oregon getting there. We'll probably be one of the last states.
Yeah, same with
Unfortunate.
California. So any of the kind of, yeah, this is going to take a while, but yeah, I think, but it's going to happen. And there's already talk about federal legislation. They put a little tax credit in the latest, one of the latest bills. So it's going to happen. It's controversial, but I think it's going to be something that comes. And the most important thing that I always share is if you are a parent, family, or even a student who's like, I want a micro school, you can totally do it because it's smaller. It's there's you can find a location because it's like I need a 2,000 square foot space. Okay, well, Amazon closed down all those spaces, right? So we have all these open retail spaces. We have these old yoga studios. We have old Montessori preschool. We have all this space sitting everywhere that people want to rent out to you. So it's not hard to find a space. We have families just begging for you to do it. We have kids that are just like praying that you would do it so they can get out of the system. And not everybody can homeschool, right? Because it's not always possible. So it's just another alternative. And if you're like, I'm really excited about doing a micro school, that's literally why the organization I started exists, so that we can accelerate our visions to have 100 of these in the next 5 to 7 years, so that we can accelerate this, have all different types across the country and the world, and say like, hey, this can be done. It's totally possible. We have happy kids, happy families, and it's an exciting time.
That is amazing. And I love that vision. One thing I want to jump back to really quick when you were
Yeah.
talking about our kiddos with our IEPs and special needs, that debit card you said that has like more on it. One thing I want to remind parents is that remember every single therapy that your child needs, speech therapy, etc. If it's not covered under medical insurance, now you can weave it into their school day through these funds and things and make sure the child is getting exactly what they need. And they
That's
get it
really
at the
good.
time of the day when they are most receptive to it, right? So instead of having to
Yes.
do it after school, after they're already worn out,
Yes.
you get to do it during the day when they're ready to learn.
That's great advice. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Awesome. David, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so very, very much. It is amazing to have someone else out in the world out there thinking along the lines that we're thinking, that it really is possible. And really, I want to encourage our families who are listening, take this as another one of those signs. If you've been thinking about it, if it's something that's in your heart that your child isn't doing well in their public school, search for those alternatives, whether it's a micro school, whether you do homeschool, whether it's a charter. I know all of those things. Now you're interrupting me again. No, just kidding. Just really think about you and your child and your family and make it great for them, because they are our future and we need them to be happy, healthy, and successful now, not later.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
And David, I would like to thank you. We talked about stuff like this for years, but we never figured out how to put it into motion. And so here we are now, and it is available and it is happening. So, and we didn't have to do it. Yay.
Exactly. That's the greatest part, right?
But we now get to talk about it, and we might get involved. And so there's so many possibilities now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for leading the way. And like we talked before, all of the ones that you said public schools up front were actually charter schools that you put in public to make it more palatable to people at that time. But so thank you for leading the way for so many years and coming to the point where this is happening now, because I know it hasn't been easy, because we've been fighting it from the other side. So thank you for doing the work. Thank you for getting it to this point. Thank you for being the person who actually stepped up and did it, because so many people talked about it. We did, and we're doing it from a different way, but your way is like really excellent as well. So thank you for
thank you
sharing it with us.
I appreciate it. I've enjoyed every second of our conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And of course, everything will be down in the show notes, but I want you to say it out loud for those people who are still listening, still here. How do they get a hold of you? Where do they find you? Website, etc. We want to make sure that's out there, voice as well as in text.
Yeah, very simple. Changemakereducation.com. One word. Everything's on the website. So if you want to find us, just go there and you can fill out a little form and I'll reach back out to you. I read every single one of them and I'll reach out to you.
Excellent. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so very, very much. And so audience, you know what to do. Share, like, and review. Make sure this episode is getting out there so David's vision can grow, our vision can grow, and your family can be the next level up in your vision of what your family is really meant to be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And until next time, bye for now.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts